Hi, my peeps, and welcome back to the channel where we find out what kind of dumb stuff the young earthers have to say about their world view today. And we're gonna go back to Eric Hovind. I just love him. So, my last few videos on Eric, before I took a break from Eric and went on to Answers in Genesis and Genesis Apologetics, was about the flood. Because, come on, we all like their excuses about how a mythical worldwide flood was possible 4,400 years ago, even though science literate people know there's no fucking way to have a global flood. But, make fun of it. And hey, throw in some education while you're at it, because, these people need all the goddamn help they can find, and they really don't have much education. So, I'll help you out. At any rate, I'll do my shilling because, come on, that's part of my job. And then, little Eric, you can take it away and spew all the nonsense that you want so I can tear it apart.
There was nothing there. How could nothing become something and something become everything? There had to be some supernatural, whatever it would be, event. So both believe in the supernatural. We just believe there's a God called Jesus.
Will you please stay on one topic? The topic of your video, at least the title of your video, is Why Evolution is Junk Science. Can you just please stay on evolution? Come on. I know you think that anything that disagrees with young earth creationism has to be part of evolution, but that's just not the case because the Big Bang happened before evolution was even a thing. In fact, it had to have happened before evolution was a thing because evolution only answers the question of the diversity of life. It does not answer how life got here, and it does not answer how the universe got here. Now, I would be completely justified in ignoring this, but I won't. I am certainly no expert on the Big Bang, and I don't pretend to be, so I'm going to find some clips that explain it better than I can. But Eric, even I know that nobody says that everything came from nothing. That's what you people say. That's what creation ex nihilo is. I get tired of pointing this out time and time again. It's interesting that you understand how problematic this is, yet you insist that's what scientists say and not what you say. Little bit of projection there, maybe?
From the Mount Wilson Observatory, northeast of Los Angeles, Hubble had gazed tirelessly through the largest aperture telescope of the time, peering at some of the dimmest parts of the night sky.
I'll go ahead and answer this question, even though most of my viewers probably already know the answer. But for those of you who don't, just so you don't feel left out, yes, this is that Hubble, the Hubble for whom the Hubble telescope is named after.
His measurements would prove conclusively the long-held suspicion that there were more galaxies than just our own Milky Way, but they would also show something that nobody had expected. Luminous objects, like stars, emit light as a result of the fusion in their cores. The color and characteristics of that light depends on the temperature and the composition of the star, but it also depends on the star's movement.
So this guy explains redshift, but he leaves out blue shift, which I guess I can understand since galaxies are not blue shifted. At any rate, redshift is what happens when things move away from us, and blue shift is what happens when they move towards us.
Just as an emergency vehicle sound and a siren will sound different when it's moving towards us or away from us, so too, the light from the star will be altered when it's moving closer or further away. In sound, the phenomenon is known as a Doppler shift, and in light, it's redshift. The light waves emitted by stars moving away from us are stretched out. The same energy must now cover a greater distance, so the wavelength is subtly increased. In the visible spectrum, the longer wavelengths of light are coloured red to our eyes, and so receding stars appear more red than they actually are. Hubble wasn't the first to discover redshift in astronomical objects, but his observations at Mount Wilson did uncover a surprising truth. Every galaxy he studied was redshifted. Every single galaxy was moving away.
So I had to look up this claim because I thought I remembered hearing something about one galaxy being blue shifted toward us, which totally eviscerates the YEC claim that God is stretching out the heavens. As it turns out, this galaxy is called Messier 90, and it's in a galaxy cluster called the Virgo cluster. Now, the Virgo cluster is moving away from us, but Messier 90 is on a quote unquote yo-yo path. And this means that when Hubble made his observation that all galaxies were redshifted, that Messier 90 could have been redshifted.
Hubble saw that the more distant galaxies receded much more quickly than those close by, and this could only be possible if the whole of space was expanding. These observations were a striking vindication of Lemaitre's mathematics and of the concept of a tiny beginning to our universe.
And now I get to tell you a little bit about Georges Lemaitre, who was a Belgian astronomer and a Catholic priest. And unlike what the Yuckers tell people, he was not an atheist because he was a Catholic priest. But they don't like that because anybody who disagrees with them just has to be an atheist. Lemaitre was born in Charleroi, Belgium in 1894 and displayed a keen interest in both science and theology from a young age. His studies were interrupted by World War I, which he served in, and then he went on to get his degree. In 1923, he published a little noticed paper which published the solution to the formulae of general relativity. This solution had been reached by Russian Alexander Friedman, but Lemaitre beat him to publishing the solution. In all fairness, Lemaitre did not know that a physicist had already figured out the solution to the equations. So, publishing's the name of the game. Lemaitre beat him to it.
In 1964, researchers at Bell Labs in Holmdel, New Jersey, were using a gigantic horn antenna to tune into radio waves bounced off some of the earlier satellites. The work demanded unprecedented precision, and the scientists went to great lengths to eliminate all possible outside sources of interference. But, despite their best efforts, their results were plagued with a persistent noise they couldn't eliminate. At first, they thought it could have been the results of pigeons roosting in the shelter of the huge antenna, their droppings disturbing the signal. Or perhaps it could have been interference from bustling 1960s New York City, some 50 kilometers away.
So, as most people know by now, what they were hearing was the cosmic microwave background radiation, the leftovers from the Big Bang. And yes, they are going to explain it, but I need to put a break here. This is a picture. You can find them on Google.
But eventually, it became clear that the noise wasn't pigeons or people. It was coming from outside our galaxy. It was a property of the universe which we now recognize as cosmic microwave background radiation. This radiation is a remnant of a time when the universe was very small and very, very hot, as predicted by Lemaitre's calculations. The expansion of space has since spread that radiation out, stretching the once intense heat waves into microwaves, with a background temperature of just 3 degrees above absolute zero.
For those who don't know, absolute zero is 0 Kelvin or minus 273 degrees Celsius, the theoretical temperature at which all motion stops. Of course, this is theoretical because we can never get to 0K.
These radiation scars burned into the fabric of space are vindication of the truth of the Big Bang.
And there it is, folks. The one fact that Yickers will never, ever accept. Well, that and the theory of evolution, because it doesn't match their fucking religion, and their religion means more to them than the truth.
The Big Bang Theory is now the accepted model for the cosmos, a picture of expansion over some 13.8 billion years. But there is still much work to be done, much understanding to be sought. The nature of the universe's first moments are still shrouded in mystery.
So has it always been this way? Have scientists always kind of followed a naturalistic path? No. In fact, when I wrote the challenge back in 1990, I went to Princeton University and spoke on campus on my book. And one of the students came up to me after I shared my testimony, because I was once an atheist.
Look, I'm not going to question whether or not he was an atheist or not. I used to be a Christian, and Christians tell me all the fucking time you never really were a Christian, and I fucking hate that. So I'm not going to do that to him. At any rate, I think what's his face lost his train of thought, which is fine. I do it all the time. But he started talking about naturalism, and no, scientists were not always naturalists because we didn't always have the tools. Then he shows for his book, and then he gets to the point I want to get to, which I'm not putting in here, but he goes on to say that scientists, quote unquote, think that 14.5 billion years ago, something came from nothing in what we call the Big Bang. People, look, have the honesty to argue against something that somebody's actually arguing for. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the 14.5 billion years. It's not that anymore. It's 13.8 billion years, but I don't know when this was made, and I really don't fucking care. So I'll accept 14.5 billion years because that may have been the estimate at this time. However, nobody except you people say everything came from nothing. And last but not least, why the fuck are we talking about the Big Bang in a video titled Evolution is Junk Science? Which, by the way, it is not, and even you admit that evolution happens.
What happened was he came up to me after I shared how I was an atheist and I never read the Bible at Princeton. He said, what would someone have said to you back then that made you consider reading the Bible?
So most of you know by now that I don't question whether somebody used to be this or used to be that, because I used to be a Christian, and Christians all the time are like, you never really were a Christian. I hate Paul. That comes from Paul, just in case you didn't know. But, you know, I don't really give a fuck. So, fine, he was an atheist. But what I do find interesting is that he seems to be implying that somebody told him to read the Bible, and reading the Bible is what turned him into a Christian. I find that very interesting because I was a Christian my whole life, and I read the Bible, and I had questions before I read the Bible, but reading the Bible really cinched it for me. There is so much wrong with that book that I can't even start to tell you what's wrong. That's how wrong it is. But anyway, even if you choose to interpret it metaphorically, it's still morally wrong.
And I gave him a quote from the back cover of my book, Recount the Scriptures of God to be the most sublime philosophy. I find more sure marks of authenticity in the Bible than in any profane history whatsoever. I said, you know who said that? He said, no. I said, Isaac Newton.
Wow.
Argument from authority. Of course, Isaac Newton said that, for fuck's sake. He was an excellent scientist. Of course, he was also an alchemist. And one thing that you forgot to say is he was a theologian. Gee, wonder why you didn't say that. At any rate, everybody back then was at least a deist. Look, Eric, I get that you are blasted away by the argument for authority because you've been taught not to argue with authority, unless, of course, they go against your belief system, but that's a whole nother story. But let me tell you something. I would not believe Einstein himself unless I looked into it.
I said, if someone would have told me Isaac Newton said that, I know what I would have said back when I went to Princeton in the 70s. You're a liar. I said, I know who Isaac Newton was. And my belief system back then was you couldn't be a scientist and believe the Bible. They were mutually exclusive.
Dude, you're a dipshit. You know how I know that? Because I knew when I was 10 years old that Isaac Newton was a theologian and a scientist. You know why? Because you fucking idiots told me that as an argument from authority. So don't even start with that. And then, of course, after I learned not to take the word of anyone over my own research, I decided to look into it. And you know what? That is one thing the Yuckers got right. Isaac Newton was a theologian and a scientist. It doesn't bode well for your argument. As you can probably tell, these people have no clue what the fuck they're talking about. They do the creationist gish gallop. The Big Bang is not evolution. Abiogenesis is not evolution. Can we please stick to evolution? But the only thing they have in their corner is the great creationist gish gallop. And this is one reason why I do not debate, period. It's because they like to gish gallop. Another reason I'm just not good at it. Maybe next time we can actually stick to the topic of the theory of evolution. I highly doubt it because sticking to one subject isn't a creationist strong point. But at any rate, we shall see. But yeah, I did predict they would gish gallop. Also, my prediction that they would bring up things that have already been explained or are in the process of being explained did come true because they brought up the nothing comes from nothing, which is absolutely false. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and also please comment down below. It does help the algorithm, and I love all of your comments, and I read all of your comments. Also, um, I have a channel on Odyssey now, link in the description. So if YouTube ever gets a bee in its ass about something and they cancel me, then you can find me over on Odyssey. And thank you very much for coming. Have a nice day and goodbye.